Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Crypto with English. So, I'd like to introduce a very unique guest today. Her name is Shivani Chokshi. So, she's the CEO and co founder of Impactionable. So, we're going to explore today what social impact and community driven platforms are relating to social impact change and how people can truly make consistent positive impacts in their community through the era of Web3 that we're living in right now. So we're really talking about social impact entrepreneurship. We're going to define it. We are also going to discuss what Impactionable is about and what their upcoming projects and goals are. So Shivani, thank you very much for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to speak with you today.
Thank you. And tell me about Impactionable. So, tell me a little bit about your entrepreneurship journey, and B, tell me I guess you could say the mission statement, or I guess you could say the overall purpose of what Impactionable seeks to accomplish.
Absolutely. So, Impactionable, what we do is we provide jobs and funding opportunities specifically in the social impact space. So, we partner with organizations like World Wildlife Fund, Dell, Because International. We help them find talent within the social impact space, which it's a niche in itself. Our overall mission is just to get people started in doing good work for their communities and the planet overall. It doesn't matter if they are looking to start a business, if they are looking to, you know, create huge amounts of change. It's ultimately about starting somewhere in social impact. So no matter how quote unquote small your impact is, together we can really do something different in this space. I started this journey around three and a half years ago. We just celebrated our 3 year anniversary in October,
Well,
but
congrats.
thank you. But so I was a student at George Washington University during doing my grad school there in public policy, and during one of my summer internships at Ashoka, I met my now co-founder Suganya, who we met during this random brown bag lunch, and she had this idea of creating a space for social entrepreneurs to network. And the more we ended up talking about it and hearing from people in the community, we realized that there's a lot of resources for social entrepreneurs already. So it's not about recreating the wheel there, but maybe getting people to ultimately think that they can make a difference, whether it's through job seeking, whether it's through existing opportunities. It's just about getting that niche sort of candidate pool in the social impact space that we can push to any sort of curated opportunity that meets their needs. So Impactionable was born, and it's quickly evolving. We're just working on developing our partnerships and our relationships with our community, and been an amazing goal dream so far.
That's awesome. And as far as the platform itself, so
Yeah.
effectively, you're trying to fix, rebuild, and improve conditions in communities. So the platform itself, and as far as I guess making social impact, what's the technology behind it? What is gonna I guess what about this platform makes it particularly special and effective?
Yeah, so essentially, we can break it down based off of our products. So our first is our social impact job portal. Right now, we have an MVP up and running. So what that means is it's a
Awesome.
minimum viable product, um, and it's basically just a Google spreadsheet. We wanted to see if we can, number one, streamline the connection between the job creator and the job seeker, with us as the intermediary making that connection. So ultimately, what that looks like is, say you're a World Wildlife Fund and you're looking for someone to fill a position within our community. So they post a job to our community. And ultimately, we're the only ones that can edit that spreadsheet. So after that partnership goes live, we post the job, and then we end up marketing out that position, advertising that position to multiple platforms, to our community. And we will then connect that job seeker to the job creator or the application itself. So it's just about, we email people back and forth, making the connection, and then we recommend those applicants to our partner itself. So they know which applicants are coming from us and what level of quality that they're looking for. So ultimately, we're able to build on this MVP over time, and we're going to end up building our own infrastructure, our
Sure.
own job portal, and then our own applicant tracking system once this is more solidified. But yeah, right now the job portal is one of the products that we have, and the others are social innovation competition. We've launched our entire website on WordPress, so it's easily customizable, and we are able to make edits as we go. And yeah, ultimately it's super simple. We right now haven't invested too much into the tech, because we're more of a B2B and we're working on building partner relationships. And honestly, tech isn't a big component of what we're looking to build right now. But I know in the future, when we launch our own data analytics platform, our own job portal, our own applicant tracking system, our software is going to change and it's going to be much more robust in the future. But right now, it's relatively simple.
That's great though, and in fact, especially as far as creating an MVP, going through that whole startup process, I have to say, just from what I've heard, that's a very cost-efficient way to put together
Mhm.
and essentially assemble an MVP at this stage. So, kudos to you and your team for doing that. And as far as jobs, obviously jobs are one of the major issues of 2021, and unfortunately, I think it will be an issue for years to come, I guess, unless some sort of great restructuring goes on with, I guess you could say, the financial system and hyperinflation and whatnot. As far as jobs, though, what type of jobs do you, I guess, which spaces do you operate in as far as finding jobs? Is this, are these tech jobs? Are these healthcare industry jobs? Or is there something specific, or are you kind of broad and just kind of doing a little bit of everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, the beautiful thing about talent in the space is that number one, what we're seeing is that as more millennials and Gen Zs enter the workforce, they're looking for companies that don't really care about the bottom line. They're looking
Right,
for companies that have some sort of social impact or mission. Otherwise, they're not going to put their labor or their money behind that company. So,
right.
the beautiful thing is that we're ahead of the curve in that way. um, so we're relatively agnostic to the sector of jobs that we're looking at, of organizations that we partner with. Our two main criteria when it comes to partnerships is the job in is the organization working in the social impact space, whether they're nonprofit or for profit. We don't really care about that. But if they're working to further any sort of community driven mission, that's really important. Or is the job itself in the social impact space. So for instance, if Target had a corporate social responsibility branch and they were looking to hire a manager within that branch, we would consider that as a social impact job itself. So
Got
if
it.
they hit one or both of the criterias, it's fine with us as long as it's within social impact. um, and from what we've been seeing lately is that a lot of our partnerships have been coming from digital agencies and marketing agencies, that are looking to help social enterprises and nonprofits. We've partnered with foundations, we've partnered with larger nonprofits, but we're the current customer that we're really catering to, especially when it comes to our package, is in the mid-sized range. So
Got it.
yeah, it's kind of a lot of trial and error, but it's interesting to see what sort of companies really do invest in the talent pool that they have. And we know, especially in the last 2 years, that that's where the investment should go. So, yeah.
No, that's absolutely great, and in fact, that is really the latest trend as far as hiring, and as far as, I guess you could say, the um, objectives of major companies now is to have some sort of social impact, some sort of, I think you could say, well-meaning aim. that exists apart from merely making profits. So Impactionable exists to connect really job seekers to companies that have some sort of stated goal and improving and making some sort of social impact, and I guess you could say in a very positive way in some part of society, correct?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. And I was going to say, as far as social impact goals and
Hmm.
companies, what are some of the most common social impact goals that you've seen out there?
Yeah, so even though we're relatively agnostic, what we've seen through our competitions and the people that end up posting jobs, um, are, you know, environmental conservation is a really big one. Especially with our competitions, we get a lot of solutions that are geared towards helping the environment in one shape or form, whether it's natural resources, whether it's energy, whether it's conservation, anything like that. That's all geared towards the environmental sector. The second part is education equity, especially for marginalized groups. So any women of color end up being a big sector. Investing in the education of young girls is a big one that we've seen. And then especially the third one is with um, social justice movement. So the whole any organizations, usually nonprofits, that are working towards helping marginalized groups in their communities in a social
Right.
justice lens, like what that happened with George Floyd last year.
Sure.
We've been seeing a lot of solutions and jobs being posted to help alleviate that, whether it's in marketing, whether it's in software development. We've seen all sorts of jobs being posted, but those are the three main sectors that we've seen come up in the last 2 years, especially.
Awesome. And you know, uh, thank you for clarifying those points as well. And I think it's particularly important to highlight. Really, this is where hiring, this is the direction of hiring in industry is really going to be going in. And I think
Right.
I guess keeping in mind a lot of the societal problems that we have right now, these things are more important than ever. And I think these things are kind of at the forefront of most people's consciousness when they're looking for, where do I want to work? And if I work at this place, other than I guess receiving a paycheck, is this going to have some sort of other benefit to society? Is my work, or I guess you could say my labor and efforts, going to contribute to something else that may improve society? In a broader, in a broader sense, so to say. So I think that's
Right.
I think that's absolutely great. And at the moment, your company and your MVP mostly based out of Chicago, correct?
Yeah, I'm based in
Yeah.
Chicago, and then we had a few other team members based in Dallas.
Cool. And I was going to say, as far as next steps or next cities, which regions do you have in mind?
Yeah, so I'm based in Chicago, but when it comes to posting jobs, we are nationwide. So a lot of our clients end up coming from the East Coast. But when it comes to you know growth and scaling, obviously we want to scale in other regions that we have a high level of community engagement in. So we're really seeing a lot of growth come in Southeast Asia. So India is a big population, and then other pockets in East and West Africa. A lot of our competition applicants end up coming from there. So if we can grow our especially our job postings in those regions, that would be the
Right.
next step. That would be great. But yeah, that's ultimately what we're seeing. And whether or not the market is there is another question. But yeah, that's in terms of scale.
Awesome. And you mentioned before competitions and your company participating in certain competitions. Are these similar to hackathons, or is it structured a little differently than that?
Yeah, so we they're a bit different. So we host 2-month long social innovation competitions. So we'll find sponsors for those competitions. They put in an X amount of money, and then we offer equity free funding for early stage entrepreneurs. Um, And these are all, it's sort of curated to the sponsor's needs. So whether that sponsor is in the environmental space, like our last sponsor, Loper Group, they're an environmental consulting firm, and they wanted a fund solution specifically that solved crucial environmental challenges. Um, we sort of curate the competition according to their needs.
Got it.
And they're kind of hackathons, but they're 2 month long events. Two We ultimately have 2 rounds, and towards the end of that round, we have a live event where we invite people to watch the 5 finalist pitches, and then people can um, you know people can watch the pitches and then decide who the final winner is. So yeah, we just closed up a competition. I think it was last week. But yeah, that's the sort of funding that we offer.
That's awesome, to say the very least. And I think that especially also having some firsthand experience myself, the startup journey is one of those things. It's very uncertain, and I will say it's difficult, but it is also extremely rewarding to
Mhm.
to say the very least. So, as far as I guess you could say, as far as degrees and placements, when you place individuals and people that you're placing, are they college graduates? Are they people with graduate degrees, perhaps, or doctorate degrees? Like, I guess as far as numbers and metrics, where
Mhm.
are most of your placements?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it depends on the type of job that our partners are posting. Some of them,
Got it.
especially highly specialized positions, they look for those graduate and even PhD degrees versus, the entry level positions that they post may just require high school or bachelor's degrees. So I can give you some stats. Um, but what we do at Impactionable is that we only charge placement fees for senior level positions. So C-suite positions.
Right.
There's an additional placement fee for those. But with entry level or mid level positions, what we do is we offer connections. So when it comes to our connections, we connect the job seeker to the job creator, and then we follow up with the job creator afterwards and ask them, how did the interview process go? Do you have anything to report back to us, just in terms of whether or not that candidate was placed or whether that connection was fruitful on their end. So in terms of connections, we have metrics for that. For placements, we're still, determining the percentage of people that we've connected that have been placed for each position. So we're still following up on our creators for that. So when it comes to connections themselves, we launched the job portal earlier, like this new sort of business model earlier this year. So I think it was in January. And since then, we've connected over 2,500 job seekers to job creators. We've had 40 partnerships with organizations that have posted jobs to our community. And whether or not, they have subscribed for multiple months is another stat. But ultimately, we know a good percentage of those people have been placed. But we're still working on finalizing that stat because, we're not a recruiting agency. We offer the connection itself.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that's ultimately, our job seekers come from around the world, but I would say 35% of them are between the ages of 18 to 35. So we're seeing a lot of people in early to mid stages of their careers transitioning to this sector, so they can, move into senior positions towards the later stages of their life. But yeah.
Awesome. And as far as companies themselves, are there any, I guess you could say, like blue chip or any type of, Fortune 500 companies that have really good social impact goals nowadays? Like, are there any that pop up or any that come to mind that maybe, you know, you'll associate with, like, okay, maybe this should be the gold standard, what this company has stated as their social impact goals? Do any come to mind?
Patagonia.
Patagonia?
Patagonia is the number one. Yeah, I I followed the CEO for a very long time. Think of him as kind of a guru in the space because he really much cares about environmental conservation, and his business model is so sustainable in that, yes, he's creating garments in the space, but he's also thinking about the environmental impact and how of their what's it called, of their supply chain, and how they
Yeah.
might be able to offset the carbon footprint that they do create. And they're doing it in a sustainable and financially sustainable way as well. So I honestly do think of them as the mecca of social impact, if I can say that.
That's great. I'll have to check them out a little bit more. So
Yeah.
Patagonia, awesome.
Yeah.
And
Even, oh, go ahead.
yes, no, after you.
Oh, so basically, even I was listening to an interview with the CEO, and he basically even said that it's all the way down. It's not only about what they put out into the world, but it's also how they run their companies. So
Right,
basically, a majority of their workforce are women of color, and he is in such a competent leader that he basically trains leaders in the company. It's not
right.
about managing; it's about leading. So he's like, he coins himself as the reluctant businessman, where
Very nice.
ultimately he thinks that he can make an impact in business is the way that he can make an impact, but it's one of the avenues, and the way that he treats his employees are where it's not the sort of attachment that we see with present day management, where
Right.
each one is trained to be their own leader, that can, he even says that during my off times, even if the company or the branch is burning down, you don't need to call me. You guys can figure it out yourself. And it's just that type
Right.
of, not detachment, but trust that he instills within his
Right.
workforce is the exact same.
So he's really empowering the next leadership in his company instead of, I guess you could say, having a straight down type of micromanagement, kind of tyrant type structure that unfortunately does exist in a lot of companies, as we have all seen in the news and elsewhere. But I have to ask you, what are some of the obstacles you faced in the beginning? Because I would imagine, especially with what you do, it would probably be easier to take almost any company that comes your way, whether
Mm,
they have a social impact mission or not. I guess just looking at pure, I guess you could say, profits. I think many startups might just think, okay, maybe we should just take whichever clients we can get on at this point. So I think for
mm,
you, I can imagine there must have been some sort of additional obstacles in that process where you essentially have a company geared to really only taking on clients that have some sort of social impact objective or initiative in that. So I'm kind of wondering, what were some of the obstacles and I guess you could say speed bumps you encountered in that process?
that's a really great question. So, when building this company, um, I feel like I can go into so many different avenues with this, but the one thing that we really wanted to keep in mind was making social impact the focus. And
Yeah,
I'll say it I'll say it again and again, it's not only about the profit, it's about people and the planet.
right,
And I one thing I really thought about was the long game with Impactionable. Sure, we can take on clients that may have big paychecks for us, but at the end of
right,
the day, if we're to remain like a human-centered, impactful company, we have to think about the integrity in which we build our business.
right,
And the integrity was and always will be a big part of how we build our business. So it was hard. It was really, really hard because as an entrepreneur, when you're scrapping and when you want to pay yourself and people that you work with, and someone comes in with a big paycheck and
right,
essentially might make that big dream come true, you have to step back a little bit and think about how it's going to affect your main mission, how it's going to affect your main mission. And ultimately, the foundation in which you build your company that is, you have to remain true to that. And if you don't, then
Very good.
you're not an impactful company. You're going to be chasing money rather than, chasing the planet, community, and money at the same time, so I really do think that when you're an entrepreneur, you have an increased responsibility to really think about who you're impacting, and you have to make that as the center. And another thing I have to say is that as an entrepreneur, yes, you're quote unquote going to chase money, but for me, money is only a way to, it's like a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. It's not
Right.
a, for me, like, I don't have an attachment to money. For me, it's like it's a fuel for our impact to move forward. And I think that
Right.
as an entrepreneur, you don't really, you can get um, rose-colored glasses with the investor or someone who
Right.
holds the paycheck, getting rich quick. But in social impact, you have an increased responsibility, and you really have to think about that. And maybe they'll make a big difference for you. But it was very, very hard. But now, a few years later, thinking about what we're doing and how we're helping people, I've never felt more solid about that in my life. So it's hard. It's definitely hard, but it's a journey that every social entrepreneur needs to go through.
By the way, I think that's awesome, and especially if you're going to promote social impact, so to say, I think first off you have to be about it yourself. So I do really
Right.
appreciate that you really put the behind the words here. And in your, I guess you could say, process and journey of putting this together, when did it become clear that you turned the corner and things were going to start getting a little bit easier? That you started kind of getting your swimming legs and you started getting momentum for this?
Yeah, I think it was this year, so our board of advisors, they really changed the corner for us. At first, last year, anyone could post jobs to our community and it was completely free. Then our board of
Right.
advisors are like, sure, it's on an Excel spreadsheet, or a Google spreadsheet, but you can still charge for this service. You don't need to put a cent into software development. You can charge for the connections that you're making. And we're like,
Right.
okay, all right, let's test this out. And, at some points, we're still sort of testing it out. But then we started getting bigger clients that had bigger paychecks that were also social impact minded. I think it was within the last 3 months itself, where, we originally, when it came to our competitions, we had always partnered with another group, but now people are coming and sponsoring the competitions, and we can have multiple sponsors for each competition. So the the I think, you know as we're starting to grow our partnerships, and some of the bigger name partners, like World Wildlife Fund, have come on board, it's just it's starting to get that validation. The
Right.
ball is starting to roll, and now we just have to work on that momentum and then grow accordingly. But I think it's just when we shifted our business model, especially this year, things really started to change.
That's awesome, and I'm very happy to hear that. And during this process, did you have any mentors that you could lean on that provided advice and provided, insights and perhaps shared some of their experience to you along the way that maybe you felt was very helpful?
Oh, 100%. It takes a village to grow any sort of business, and whether
Right.
that's your team, whether it's the board of advisors, it's whoever you have, you lean on them. So we have an amazing board of advisors. Mari helps with finance, Dennis helps with operations, Chris Camella helps with human resources, and then Shar, who recently joined, is our marketing advisor, and then Anand help with data. So it's just, yeah, we've kind of covered the gamut as to what we need, and now it's just about, working with them as much as possible to in this next chapter. Absolutely.
Awesome. And what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs who are in this space, who are just starting off, and they want to do something that's going to meaningfully add and meaningfully grow the social impact space?
Yeah, great question. Anytime I talk to entrepreneurs, I really ask them, is growing a business going to help alleviate the challenge? And if it is,
Right.
that's great. If it's not, that's great. And so if they are entrepreneurs and they have found a challenge that has not been solved, so I think that's the critical part where you first start with the challenge. You start with understanding the challenge as much as you can, dissecting it as much as you can. Honestly, as an entrepreneur, you get caught up in the idea and the solution itself. But the solution is only one of the solutions that there can be towards solving the challenge. So really understanding the challenge and the nuances it has is really important. So you can understand the system overall and what contributed to that challenge. So really start
Right.
with the challenge and then focus. When you have the challenge down, focus on your solution. And then it's just about building the right team. It's around execution, execution, execution. Ideas will come and go, but it's the execution that really, really matters. And being consistent with the execution every single day, even when the day gets boring or your spirit is down, take breaks if you
Right.
need to. Mental health is really important as an entrepreneur, but don't lose sight of the mission. If the challenge still exists and there's no one else doing something about it, and you still feel like it needs to, like there is a desperation towards solving the challenge, then go full steam ahead, or find people who can go full steam ahead for you. But it's a very it's a very hard journey. It's the hardest thing I've ever done and probably will ever do. It's a roller coaster, like you said in the beginning. The highs are very high and the lows are
Yeah.
very, very low. So just keeping all of that in mind is really important. But yeah, just keep it very simple.
Awesome. And speaking of that roller coaster, so I would imagine when putting this company together, sometimes, probably more than just sometimes, I would say often, you probably encounter detractors, critics, just negative people, probably telling you, hey, listen, Shivani, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. They could be family, they could be other professionals, these could be classmates that you know. Did you encounter a lot of that? And the only reason why I'm asking is this is because with your business model, people are going to say, "What? You're only going to take on clients that are benefiting, social impact causes." Like, I would imagine you've probably heard a few comments like that from people. Like, why not just make life easier on yourself? Why not just take on anybody, so to say?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had and continue to have a lot of critics
Right.
telling me that we can make so much more money if we and like made our clientele a little bit more inclusive, or I've even heard people tell me that I needed to quit my day job in order to build this company, not understanding the equity lens that there is
Right.
behind building a business.
Right.
There's been a lot, whether it's family members, friends, close relatives, anyone like that, people that you do trust, telling you that it's not going to work. It doesn't feel good. I will say
Right.
that it you really start doubting yourself because you know when you're growing up and you're growing up with a close knit community, whether it's friends, family, or you know uh, professionals, you sort of a piece of you is in them and vice versa.
Sure.
And when someone doesn't support you, it hurts even more. But at the end of the day, I think something to really think about is, again, going back to the advice that I would give to entrepreneurs, is that if the challenge exists and there's no one doing something about it, and you're the only one that's doing something about it, and you realize that the world needs it,
Right.
you have to move full steam ahead in it. The Japanese have this one saying called ikigai. It's the intersection of what the world needs, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, um, and I believe there was something else, but ultimately, impactionable is part of my ikigai, and it's very important to. I don't know. I think that you just have to have clear vision, and it'll help out.
Right. Well, I'll have to write that one down. That sounds great. Ikigai.
Yeah,
It makes a lot of sense.
IKIGAI. Yes.
That's that's awesome. And as far as well, I'll tell you what. It seems like you started proving all these people wrong a long time ago, from what I've heard. So good job to you. And I'd say keep on going. So as far as the next 6 months, what do you have planned with Impactionable? What do you hope to achieve?
Yeah, great question. So we are really ramping up of our sales and partnerships. So we're putting the job portal development stuff on back burner until we reach a good amount of subscriptions for our job portal. So yeah, we're just ramping up our sales. We're ramping up our competitions and the sponsors that come with the competitions, and really working on creating a name for ourselves so people know we are the place to go for social impact, whether you're looking for jobs or for funding for your organization. So these 6 months will be critical moving forward. And then towards the end of the year, next year, we're going to start with the job portal development so we can work on building our own applicant tracking system. So everything isn't so manual for us and our partners. But yeah, that's the big push.
Awesome. And this is this next question is slightly off topic, but it's pretty relevant, I think, as far as um, job searching and related trends in the future. But do you have any plans to move, or at least part of some of the business, onto some sort of blockchain technology going forward? Because it seems like society is eventually going to be moving into. So I kind of want to know your thoughts on blockchain, and maybe as far as blockchain and Impactionable.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know much about blockchain. And honestly, if you wanted, I know that you do. So if you and I wanted to brainstorm, that would be kind of cool.
Sure. We have a separate call about
But
that.
honestly, yeah, honestly, I honestly don't know much about blockchain at all. Our technology is super simple, and it's just very customer and clientele oriented. And if we can create a process that only streamlines that or optimizes that in the future, then I would really consider it. It's just my honest answer to this is that I honestly don't know much about blockchain.
No, and and like I said, no worries about that. And like I said, I'll be more than happy to have a separate call about that and perhaps point you in the right direction. To say the very least. So, listen, that pretty much covers all my questions. I got to say, you answered all of them quite succinctly, with just enough substance. So, listen, I have to say, Shivani, thank you so much for coming on today. I really do believe that this is going to be the forward. This is going to be the upcoming trend as far as companies and hiring and what companies are going to have to be about. I think, especially with all the problems that we do have today, I don't think one can simply go along, let's just say, making profits with total disregard to the surroundings and society and communities anymore. This is a new game, and I think the old rules are out the window now. So I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited about learning more about social impact hiring and social impact job seeking too. And I'm
Mhm.
very excited to have you back on in a few months and learn more about, I think, essentially the progress you all are making that impactable. So Shivani, again, thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Adam. It was really great talking to you. Amazing questions, and
Oh,
you actually gave me a lot to think about as well. So I really
awesome.
appreciate it. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, please do. Please check out our website. Would love to get in touch. But thank you. Thank you so much for
Anytime,
this.
and I'll definitely put the word out as well. So thank you so much, and I'll
Thank you. Take care, Adam.
see you. Bye.
Bye.